05. And we're going to bring someone in now. Louis Riddick is going to join us, our ESPN NFL front office insider. He's from the Combine. Louis, listen, we're happy to have you on the show, but we have to preface something for you, okay? We had Adam Schefter on earlier, Louis, and let's just say he was a little feisty this morning. And if you don't believe me, let's just take a listen here.
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. And I know we want answers to questions yesterday. I got it, okay?
And then he followed that up with this.
I got it, okay?
And then he followed that up with this.
Again, we're rushing to answers when I don't know what the rush is.
So Adam clearly was a little offset.
He was.
We don't know why.
He was.
And that led to this little gem of a phone call that someone called in and left this voicemail for us.
Wow. I think you guys need to leave Adam Schefter alone till like late August or September. He was a feisty little nugget this morning, wasn't he? End of messages.
A feisty little nugget.
So, Louis, from now on, by the way, we'll be playing this incessantly up to the draft and during the draft.
Yes, we will.
Whenever Adam Schefter, our feisty little nugget, joins us for information.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna call him. I'm going to call him Nugget from now on.
Yeah, he's our little nugget.
Like
That's who he is.
Oh, it's awesome.
So anyway, we're hopeful you're a little cheerier than he was this morning. So let's start. We know you're at the Combine, but let's start with the idea of trying to redefine a catch as the league is trying to do this. Do you think what they're doing and talking about getting rid of the surviving the ground is the right move?
Come on, Trey. Of course it is. Of course it is. Look, I mean, common sense has to rule today. Sometimes when you just watch the game and you kind of look at it in the way that you used to look at it when you were a kid and when you used to play in your backyard or where you played in Pop Warner in high school, and you kind of knew that this is what catches look like when you watch it and you go, okay, that looks like a catch. And the whole surviving the ground thing that has crept into this game and all the indecision that has crept into this game and the desire to try and perfect everything as far as the game is concerned, quite honestly, has ruined it for many people. And it's ruined games. It's ruined seasons. It's ended seasons for people. So I think going back and really – I mean, look, when you see that clip right there with Calvin Johnson, to not call that a catch is just – I mean, I can't even really say it on TV. And then when you see here with Des Bryant, I mean, that's a catch. You understand that right there is the kind of thing that you did all along when you were a kid, when you were in high school, playing Pop Warner, going through college. Those are the kind of things that just make sense to you with the game. And I'm glad that common sense – and kind of a simplification process is underway now to kind of make the game a little bit more, let's just say, easier to digest when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Okay, along those lines, Louis, and then because I get it with those two, I thought they were catches as well. But now what else gets taken out? Are we still talking about a football move? So I want you to break down the two catches where they were both tight ends. Zach Ertz took a couple steps, didn't come down with the ball, but he crossed the goal line because he was a runner. Jesse James didn't take a couple steps, bobbled the ball past the goal line, and it wasn't a catch. How would you distinguish those two plays now?
That's a great question. Look, I think once you break the plane on touchdowns, okay, once the ball breaks the plane, I think that should be a touchdown right there, period. Okay, we're right here with Zach Ertz again. He breaks the plane, doesn't come down and control the football, but he broke the plane. And when you're watching this, and I'm watching it right here, once it breaks the plane, I think, and he had already made basically a football move, I mean, that to me just makes sense as that being a catch. Even this play here that you're seeing here with Corey Clement. All right, 1, 2, he's got the ball, comes to the ground. I mean, these are the kind of things that right here, when you start trying to split hairs, Mike, I mean, it's one of those where you get so kind of caught up in all of the nuance and trying to be so perfect that you will muddy the waters. You will start blurring the lines. Some of these things, really, for me, you just have to kind of rely on common sense and, again, rely on your natural instincts as far as how the game should be played and what looks like a catch and what shouldn't. Those plays with the play there with Zach Ertz, to me, is really self-explanatory. If you break the plane in the goal line and you're in the air, you don't have to survive the ground once you hit the ground in the end zone. And with Corey Clement right there, you get 2 feet down, and the ball looks like it's in control. I mean, those are things to me, I don't understand how we've gotten so nuanced with this stuff to the point where now we're sitting here, even on our talk show right now, talking about how do you break this down and how do you make this more specific and how do you make this more clear. Sometimes there's just going to be some gray area in football that we have to accept.
Well, then I guess I would ask, does that mean in your eyes that Jesse James was not a catch because in both the other scenarios you just gave, there were football moves? With Jesse James, by definition, there was not a football move. So would you say that should continue going forward to be an incomplete pass?
Yeah, you know what? That one, the difference between making a football move and not making a football move. I mean, I get that one. That one's a little bit tougher. When you come down like this, I do understand the whole concept of making a football move. I do get that as far as establishing possession. So the one with Jesse James, I mean, that one, I know you're still incorporating the whole surviving the ground issue right there. But I think you do need to have something as far as establishing a football move. So it's one of those where, you have a little bit more, a little bit more structure to exactly what is a catch in that regard. I'm talking about, though, when you're looking at the Zach Ertz type of play, though, when you're crossing the goal line and you've broken the plane, I don't think those kind of things should be in dispute. If you're in the air and you cross the plane of the goal line and the ball hits the ground once you get into the end zone and you lose control, but I think that should be a touchdown. Right. Establishing a football move, like I've always been okay with that. So with the Jesse James thing, I understand. If you don't call that a catch, I understand that one.
Yeah. Look, there's going to be no one will ever agree 100%, but it looks like we're headed in that direction. Louis Riddick, our front office insider, is with us, joining us from the Combine in Indianapolis. So let's get to the Combine, which is going to dominate the headlines in the football world specifically for the next few days. And the biggest headline coming out of it right away is that we're hearing that Sam Darnold, potentially the number 1 pick overall in the draft, the quarterback out of USC, is not going to throw at the Combine. What's your reaction to that?
I never understood, quite honestly, why quarterbacks come here and feel as though not throwing at the Combine is something that they need to protect themselves against. Or rather, throwing at the Combine is something they need to protect themselves against, and that it could harm them in some way if they don't throw here. To me, it's almost like a power move on their part to try and just dictate the situation and show that, hey, look, I kind of know what my value is. I don't really need to do what everyone else is doing. I'll throw on script at my pro day with my throwing coach and my wide receivers where I'm more comfortable, where I'm going to set it up to where it's just all in my favor. Well, guess what? Not everything is set up all in your favor when you're playing the game in the National Football League on Sundays and you don't have your throwing coach out there with you and you don't have your receivers and everything isn't perfect for you. I never understood that. It's quite annoying to me, quite honestly, because when you come out here, look, scouts, GMs, coaches are smart enough to know that you don't know these receivers. They're smart enough to know that it is one of those things where it takes some time to get your timing down, but they just like to compare you to everyone else and see how quickly you can adapt. And if you're good enough and you're confident enough, then you'll adapt quickly. Your accuracy will start showing through, and the cream always rises to the top in these throwing drills. I've never walked out of the Combine when I was a scout or heard a GM walk out of a throwing drill here at the Combine and going, well, that quarterback stinks. I need to go back and rewatch all the tape that I watched because he missed a couple of those speed outs to a wide receiver he didn't even know. It doesn't work like that. So when you do these kinds of things, to me, it's more agent-driven. It's more, my client doesn't need to do this. And quite honestly, I just kind of roll my eyes at it like, okay, whatever. I guess we'll show up at your pro day and let you go through your nice little scripted workout. But then what we're going to do if we're going to consider drafting you is we're going to get our coaches with you, and we're going to drill the heck out of you and make sure that you can do things that we want you to do anyway. So in the end, it's kind of really just, it's a non-event for me, but it's a little bit annoying when people do that.
I get that, and I certainly understand why scouts and talent evaluators would feel that way. But the Combine and the pre-draft process is really a two-tiered approach depending on what side you're on. The evaluators want to get the most information. Every player wants to make sure his market value is highest. And Darnold was knocked a little bit this year, Louis, because, well, he wasn't in sync with his receivers. They were new receivers. It took him a while to get together. And if that was something that dinged him a little bit, maybe he's saying, look, I don't want to go through that with guys that I don't know, so why don't I just do my throws with the guys that I finally found a rhythm to protect my market value?
Well, in that way, you're insulting the intelligence of scouts then and thinking that all of a sudden, well, if you don't get in sync quickly with the receivers here, that really it just solidifies what they saw on tape. It doesn't work like that. We understand what this is. As scouts, I'm saying, we understand what the pluses and minuses are to throwing here. One of the things that you can evaluate, though, Trey, is this. You can evaluate just how comfortable he looks taking 3, 5, 7-step drops, what his mechanics are looking like, how he's improved on his footwork, how he's interacting with the other players, both quarterbacks and the wide receivers as they're going from drill to drill, all the different types of intangible, tangible, and intangible type of things that are important. Especially when you're talking about drafting a quarterback as a franchise guy as high as Sam's going to be drafted. Never have I seen a scout, again, or a GM ding a guy or start to grade down a guy based off of throwing drills here at the Combine. It can only help. Otherwise, people just kind of take it with a grain of salt, move on to the individual workout process, and then start and continue to evaluate from there. When you start doing these types of things where it feels as though you're trying to set yourself up almost – not really organically to look as good as you possibly can, I think that annoys scouts even more, and that will cause scouts and teams to push back the other way and go, we're going to try and make it more difficult for you because the NFL isn't set up for you for it to always be ideal. And he's going to go high anyway. He just is. It's not going to. This throwing drill here at the Combine is not going to make the difference between him going 1 or 5 or 1 or 3 or 1. It's not. It doesn't work like that. It can only help you. It can only make people appreciate your competitiveness, appreciate your leadership, appreciate your ability to work with others, as you can see in all these types of drills. All it's going to do is raise your profile. It has never hurt anybody's profile as far as a quarterback throwing here.
What hurts players' profiles there then? What will cause scouts, GMs, coaches, whether it's a quarterback or another? I guess you could see another if you look out of shape or whatever. But, I mean, what you say that's not going to grade you down, then I almost ask, well, why the hell are you doing it then? I mean, we're here for a grading period. Either say you did this well or you didn't do this well, and it should hurt you or can help you. So what are we looking for?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, Golic, I mean, you know this. The medicals and the interviews are the most important thing here about the Combine.
Yep.
There's no question about that. They want their doctors and their trainers to get their hands on you and make sure that if you have an injury history, that they can go ahead, vet that out, make sure there's nothing that long-term will prohibit these teams from drafting you or have any kind of long-term concerns. And then the interviews, formal and informal, those are again, some of the more important aspects of this Combine, trying to get some face time with you, trying to ask you questions that kind of disarm you, number one, show your authentic self, see if coaches and the player in question can really vibe, if there's some kind of chemistry between the two. Those are the kind of things that you're really trying to figure out. And then you start really, you start doing kind of like detective work. How are players acting when they're at the hospital, when they're being led from drill to drill, when they're being led from interview to interview? Just how do they conduct themselves? How professional are they? Those are really the most important things. Now, and they can hurt you if you start doing things in such a way that kind of shines a bad light on you and increases your risk profile from your character. That's how the Combine can hurt you. On the field, how can it hurt you? Well, obviously, if you show up here and you're blatantly out of shape and you look like you have 2 left feet when you're trying to go through drills, and if you were throwing as a quarterback and you were like airmailing the ball 5 yards over people's heads out of bounds, I mean, obviously that would hurt you. But people want to see you come here, walk across this stage when you weigh in and look like someone who has invested the time to get yourself right and compete against the other best players in the country, first and foremost. And if you're good, you're going to shine anyway. You're going to look like one of the better athletes. But if you come here and you're not in shape and you haven't put in the work, that does start raising some red flags. That can ding you. What it will do, though, is make people, again, go back and remember, look at the film, look at what they did during the fall, because ultimately, and I just tweeted this the other day, ultimately remember this, it's about what you do on the football field. It's about how you're coached, how you're utilized, how your strengths are maximized, and how your weaknesses are limited. And coaching matters. So everybody knows that. It's a big, big picture. It's a big, big process that really is underway right now. And I just don't see any real reason why, if you're one of the best players, and even if you're not one of the best players, why you wouldn't want to compete against everyone else here as long as you would put in the work and you understand that, hey, I'm coming here to put my best foot forward. It is a job interview. Why wouldn't you want to be on your best behavior? Why wouldn't you want to be in tip-top shape? When you don't want to do those things, when you want to start skipping out on things, that starts raising red flags for me, because somehow, some way, you're wanting to duck part of the process, and I don't really understand why.
All right, Louis Riddick with us from the Combine, our ESPN front office NFL insider. I couldn't help but notice you mentioned the word, they want to see how you are, and you're at the hospital. Obviously, Alabama linebacker Reuben Foster had an incident there, and quite frankly, to your point, some of that has carried over. He's had some issues while being a great player on the field. He's had some issues his first year in San Francisco. And you mentioned the evaluations and the discussions. I have to believe that the guy that is going to probably draw a lot of attention there in terms of handling himself will be Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. Do you believe he'll be one of the most scrutinized players in terms of watching that part of this going forward?
Absolutely, Trey. Look, and you know what? When you bring up the fact that, you want to scrutinize players in a natural, organic environment, that's what you want to do. You want to get these players to act as much like they act when no one is looking. That's what you want to find out. And I'll tell you this, in my time in scouting, there is no question when players are being shuttled to physicals, to the airport, when they feel as though the people that are around them do not affect their long-term career, or how their draft stock is going to, or rather how their draft status is going to fluctuate up and down, that's when they start to show who they really are. That's when they start running their mouth. They start saying things about maybe the process that they don't like. That's when maybe they get on the phone, start talking to their friends, start saying things that otherwise they wouldn't be caught in a million years saying in front of decision makers. That's the kind of thing that right now at the Combine and from now until the draft that personnel departments are going to want to try and find out. They're basically, the scouting department right now, they're a bunch of private eyes. And, I hate to say it like that, but the truth of the matter is that when you go for a job interview, whether it be here, whether it be at IBM, Microsoft, whatever, you're going to put your best foot forward and you're going to tell people everything they need to hear. I can't tell you how many interviews I sat through during my time in the front office where guys came in there and everything was, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. And it's like, I know you don't talk like that in your everyday life.
Right.
I know you don't. I guarantee when you get out of this room and you get on your phone and you're talking to one of your boys or your friends or whoever, you're not that person. Show me who you are. Show me who you really are. It's okay. Okay? Because we know that's not how it really works. And those are some of the things that right now teams are trying to find out here. Coaches are trying to find out here. Who are you really? Are you healthy? And who are you really? Because we're making a big investment in you, number one, by bringing you in here and talking to you individually in our formal and informal interviews. And number two, look, we only get so many draft picks. We only have so many assets that we can use and invest in here when we're building football teams in the NFL. We've got to be right. And there's nothing worse than missing on a player because you missed on his character and who he was. And I'm telling you, people are going to miss on skill sets all the time. And sometimes players just don't match up with the kind of things you're trying to do schematically, which is a whole different set of circumstances. But the Combine is about finding out who players are. And you're absolutely right. With a guy like Reuben Foster, who I loved, stood on the table for, pounded the table for. Sometimes when players are in those organic environments where they just kind of act the way that they normally do, they start to show themselves. And that's one of the most important things about this whole process, to be honest with you.
Well, Lewis, we'll see how that plays out this week and who people are talking about. And, hey, just want to say from Mike and myself, thank you for being courteous and not agitated. Yeah. It was nice to talk to someone without
I started to sound a little agitated there.
No, you were good.
You were fine.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
I'm going to talk to Little Nugget here in a minute.
Just tell him to be a little less feisty. All right, Lewis, thanks. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.